5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Converted man here. Okay. How's it going? So this is easier than recording myself and then putting it on YouTube because I'm recording myself and putting it directly to YouTube. But unlike when I show my face on the camera, people might actually watch this. So the what if I made a response video to the alt-right playbook introduction video? I had some more thoughts on this as I am getting some comments, and I'm concerned with a lot of these, well, some of the comments, not a lot of them, I guess, but the idea that you might not be able to change somebody's mind, and that therefore they're not worth their time or energy or what have you. And that might be the case, but you don't know unless you try. So the comparison was made like with, a flat earther or something like this. Well, but if nobody debates them, then they continue on thinking that they're right. Now they might double down. They might, reshore their belief, but they might do that independently regardless. And we don't know how a person is going to receive information or not. So we simply do not know how a person will or will not respond to debate. I'm going to double check to make sure anyone's in the chat room, if I can figure out how to do that, which I can't because I don't know what I'm doing. Oh, well, yeah. No, I've got 3 viewers, so if they're talking in chat, I don't know. Oh, wait. Oh, there it is. No? Yes? Nope. Don't know. I don't know what I'm doing. Great. Anyways, where was I? No, I'm going to keep trying to figure this out for a moment. Just bear with me. Let's see. I clicked on videos. It's not there because YouTube doesn't put it there. That would make sense. Go to my channel. Somewhere. It's got to be somewhere. Nope. That's the Google Plus. Oh, God. Now I'm losing subscribers. I'm losing viewers. No, stop going back there, you stupid YouTube. I don't know what I'm doing. Somebody's in chat right now. Hey, Decomverted Man, here's how to do it. It's really simple. And I'm like, it doesn't. I don't understand this. I don't. View channel. There we go. That's the right button. Here we go. Okay. Hey, I found myself. All right. Now let's see. Hey, what's up, DM? Hey, DM. Hey, Gob. Okay. Oh, Gob. Sorry, Gob. So Gob Berrit. Wait, I better just show this chat. I know how to do that. I know how to show my screen. I'm not that stupid. I am stupid, but I'm not totally stupid. Oh, no, I'm stupid. Okay. So, hi to Gob, Rational Martin, and Chaosism, and Andy Jack, and this message is held for review. Oh, okay. What the bleep? Okay. Well, and then that's Rational Okay, so that's everybody in chat. So hi, everybody. So I'm talking about the video I just did, where I talked about things in that video. So if you don't know what that video is, then you don't know what I'm talking about. So I'll talk about that video so I can talk about the video. So the video I responded to was the guy talking about the alt-right, which I don't know what the alt-right or alt-left is. I have no idea. And he didn't clarify what it was in his video, even though that was like the entire point of his video, was to like try to explain what the bleep it is. But what I got from the video was basically everybody he doesn't like is part of the alt-right. And like he lists all these, he's like the angry asshole atheists, part of them like brush up against the alt-right. And it's like, how? Where's your proof? What do you mean by that? And so he lists all these different people and things that people do or groups do, and said, said they all brush up against the alt-right in one way or the other, and the alt-right's just a white supremacy rebranded. And I'd love some, evidence for any of these assertions, but he gives like 2 links in his description. But that part of the video I didn't care about, because people don't really care when I do the political stuff on my channel. So I was like, yeah, I could complain about that and point out how wrong he is and how he doesn't have any references or anything, but people aren't going to watch it. The main point that got to me was when he says, don't engage with the alt-right. Don't talk to them, and here's why. Because it might cause that person to go and hurt somebody. So you're appealing to consequence, and then you're appealing to fear. So you have 2 logical fallacies to why not to engage. And I've heard this before, not just with, alt-right, alt-left, alt-control, alt-delete, whatever, but way back when I made a video, Captain Andy, I don't know if any of you know who that guy is, but he made a video saying don't debate people in regards to like feminism stuff or whatever. And I'm like, don't tell people not to debate people. Of course we should debate people. But there's part of this ideology that seems to be somehow connected to super far left. That might be the wrong way to put it. But there's part of this ideology that debating somehow makes the other side more legitimate. So when you debate somebody, you make their thing right by virtue of debating it. Like, it's worth your time. So comparisons have been made like, well, we don't debate flat earthers. Well, that's not true. We do debate flat earthers, but it's a waste of time to do it. So you're legitimizing their ideas by debating them. That's kind of the motif that I've seen, and why people have said don't debate people or don't debate certain ideas. But this is a new sort of fallacy of appealing to potential harm that somebody might maybe do. But if they're the sort of person that's going to hurt somebody, they're going to do that regardless if you debate them or not. So it's all rather pointless. And ideas need to be debated. All ideas need to be. It might have been a slippery slope argument. Hi, Snuffy. Don't debate pre-suppers. Well, we all have choices of who we will and will not debate. That's independent of my point here, which is, it's one thing to say, look, I don't want to debate X, Y, and Z person or group or whatever. It's a whole nother thing to say, we collectively should not engage with that, because all that leaves then is, so you're basically saying, let's never talk to them. And what's that leave us? Well, nothing, because if I can't reason with them because I've taken that off the table, then all I have left is physical force. I have to remove them from society, and they have to try to remove me from society, whether that's go to jail or taking us off the mortal coil, whatever that is. And that's just violence. That's all it leaves, is when you say we're not going to discuss this. We're not going to negotiate this. We're not going to debate this. We don't want to talk about this. We don't want to hear your side. You have to believe our side. You have to understand our side, and you have to do all this work and jump through all these hoops before you can get on our platform. And even then, we won't really let you have your say. So you're, mistreating them because they're your perceived opponent and all this sort of thing. And so when you take talk off the table, that only leads to violence. There are some ideologies that leave no room for discussion. Islam might be one of them, at least the more extreme versions, because we got to say not all Muslims, but yeah. But here you have a system that says we're the last thing. We're the way to make the world good is everybody is a Muslim. The people that aren't Muslim, they we'll super tax them and make them feel bad and rotten until they become a Muslim, or we'll kill them. Either way, whatever, they've got, either they're Muslim or they're so oppressed that they eventually will be wiped out by how much pressure we put on them. But then once everybody's Muslim, then that will be the utopian Muslim world, right? Well, of course it won't be, because then you'll have one sector, vie for control, and then another sector will come and you'll just have violence and violence and violence. But, well, where are you to go with a person that says, well, I want to kill you because you're not Muslim, and the only way for me not to kill you is to become a Muslim. And if you don't want to be a Muslim, well, there's no room for negotiation there. So the only recourse is force, is you try to take them out of the picture, whether that means getting them into a jail so they can't hurt you or anyone else, or removing them from the mortal coil. And neither of those are good things, because ideally reason should prevail. So, somebody gave an example in the comments on the video I just did. What if I responded to the video guy? I named the video that because his whole motif is to make his video seem like he's like, what if I make this video about this, and what if I do this? And then he's like, it's like, you are making the video, what are you doing? So it's this like style of putting his video in a hypothetical format. It's really odd, but hey, it works for him. He's got more subs than I do, so what do I know? Maybe I should just be like, what if I analyze this debate, or whatever. What if I finally get back to knocking down that guy that plays Sonic while he's trying to do a poor lecture? What if I did that? I'm not really going to do it, but what if I did? What would happen then? But at any rate, that there might be a flat earther. So, well, what if debating that person makes them more certain about their belief? Okay, but that's an appeal to a potential consequence, and you do not know. You have no idea, because it might be that one piece of information that changes their mind. It might not happen today or tomorrow or next week or next year or whatever. You might never know about it, but it might change their mind. And not to appeal to the minority of one, but to do that anyways, even though I said I shouldn't do it. I'm an example of somebody who was exposed to multiple debates and arguments as a theist, where people took time and energy to respond to me, both in comment and in video format. And the questions and the things that they brought up and the facts that they put forth, I didn't look into them or necessarily answer every single one of them at the time, but they stuck with me and made me have to look into it for myself. So I did change my mind. So, well, if I can do it, maybe somebody else can, So the, debating, flat earth or whoever, obviously, if it's just between the two of you, it might not be too fruitful. It's better with an audience, because then you have more people out there, that are exposed to that argument. Yeah, debates aren't usually about convincing your opponent. Yeah, ideally, in an ideal world, if we sit down to a debate and you have a logical argument and I don't, I should agree with you. Hypothetically speaking, if I adhere to the rules of logic. That usually doesn't happen, because, we don't like, I've tried to train myself to like being wrong so that I can learn something new, so I don't have to just keep believing that I'm right, but it's difficult to train yourself to do that and to accept being wrong, especially in the moment. You don't want to be wrong in that moment. You want to be right, and you might not be. But to suggest any consequence or even a potential consequence of, but if I debate this person or I debate about this idea, then X will happen and X is bad, and therefore I'm not going to do that. But you don't know. You have no idea. It might be, but I've debated this guy 20 times, so it might be the 21st that convinces him. You don't know. I don't know. Is it a waste of time? Well, what isn't a waste of time? That's kind of subjective anyways. But I think that all ideas must be put to critical analysis and public scrutiny. And it doesn't matter if we've tried the idea in the past and it's failed, because people are going to want to try it again. And well, but what if we did it this way? Maybe it would work if we did it like this, you know? So, you know, that bad guy, he did this thing called this final solution. But what if we did it this way instead? You know, maybe it would work. And well, if you don't debate that schmuck that's saying that, well, you know, then what? Then they might create an echo chamber, so you can make a counter appeal to consequence of what happens when you don't debate people, and say, well, now that you didn't debate them, they've strengthened their hold even further because nobody was there to oppose their ideas, you know, and you could go down that way too. We shouldn't use illogic to promote debating against or for things, but it's odd when I encounter people that say, in essence, don't debate this. It's too dangerous of an idea to debate whatever this is, or this idea, it has been done to death and it simply isn't true, so it's just worthless to debate it. Well, maybe to you, but not to me. I mean, it's you know, it's of some value. Now, quite some time ago, I challenged some Nimrod on YouTube to a debate, and they, you know, chickened out because, you know, people tend to shy away from debates with me because I think that they know that they would lose, or at least they suspect they would. But at any rate, he said, well, I will debate you on Star Wars versus Star Trek. You know, because I said that all debates matter. So he was like, I guess he was trying to pin me in that and say, aha, you won't debate this because it doesn't really matter. Well, I would have happily debated him that. The problem was the subjective idea was which is better. And I'm like, well, we have to quantify what you mean by better. And here's the negotiation process. And it won't be on your thing. He wanted me to do it on Twitch or something like that. I'm like, I'm on YouTube. That's my thing. I'll do it on my channel. And of course, he didn't go any further with that negotiation process. So he didn't really want to debate me about this, you know, silly thing of Star Wars versus Star Trek, because he probably would have lost. And the whole point was to try to, like, I guess, shame me into admitting that there are some debates that aren't, quote, worth it, end quote, or whatever. And it's like, well, you know, I don't know how much value that particular debate would be, but depending on how you set it up, I would at least establish that I know logic and you don't. So there'd be a value of that, you know. So, but you know, he didn't really want to debate, and so he ran away from even his fake debate offer, which I found amusing. What side do I want? He wanted me to take Star Trek because I do the Vulcan you know, salute in a lot of my pictures, which actually Nimoy based on Rabbi's blessing. So, you know, it's actually a religious icon, not a Trek one, but it's become, you know, associated with Trek and logic and whatnot, even though it didn't start that way. But you know, and again, sure, I'll debate whatever you want to debate, but the terms of what we're debating have to be put forth. We have to understand them. We have to agree to them. So we're going to say, well, which one's better? Well, what do we mean by better? Do we mean better by which one made more money? Then are we going to examine just the movies, or are we going to include all media? You know, and we've got to agree to certain ideas, and you might not even need to debate, because if you're doing some sort of analytic on, well, who made the more money, you could figure that out, and so you would have the facts of it. And if you're doing something like, well, which is better in terms of social impact, that might be a little bit harder to nail down, because then you're going to have to show what impact Star Wars versus had on people, what impact Star Trek had, and that's somewhat subjective, but you could still get some data points there. But you're going to have to agree to certain parameters in order to debate. Otherwise, you don't have anything. But again, it's this: every idea, anything out there is debatable. Every concept, everything is debatable. Whether you personally want to debate it or not, you know, that's up to you. I mean, you know, some people, you've got better things to do or whatever. It's not just something you're not interested in, whatever. I love debate, so I'll debate. Yeah, whatever. I'm debating about the fact that we should always have debates about stuff, and whether they're useful or not, people have debated that idea too. Well, is it better if it's formal or informal? And there's, questions on that, and those are all great. But I think that, and again, not to get away too far from the main thrust of the video I did, which is ideas, whatever they are, need to be debated. And we have to do that, whether or not the idea has been tried. So say socialism, that's an idea that's been tried and hasn't succeeded, but maybe this version will. And so you build a structure of a hypothetical model, and you go, okay, well, here's the points where it failed. At least we can map that. Or here's the points where it succeeded. So let's map that too. And maybe you want to take the failure side and somebody else wants to take the success side, and you slam them into each other, metaphorically speaking, and see which one survives. And perhaps neither one survives. Perhaps they're of equal measure, which means, well, it appears that it's a zero-sum game, that you're not going to get any necessary benefit out of it. So that system it's not bad, but it's not good either. So now we have to move on. But you've learned something about it through that process. Yeah, talking about Star Wars. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's problems with Star Wars. There's problems with Star Trek. We could talk about that silliness if we wanted to, but whatever. But I think that for some, there's a fear of that if I've heard this, like the deplatforming thing, this motif. Well, if we give the KKK member a spot on the radio show, then we've given him a platform that he didn't have before. And now his voice has reached out to the ether, and more people might become KKK. Well, I don't know that. I would actually think, I don't know what would happen. But but if that person was going to be convinced by this person's arguments for being a KKK person, well, then we need to know that now, not later, because if he's not on the air, he might potentially reach that person anyways. So we're saying, well, we're spreading this idea out there, right? But you have somebody counter his points, or maybe by virtue of what he's saying, it's so obviously evident that it's nonsense that people listening to it go, huh, yeah, that's crazy bananas, and nobody should be part of that, but you don't know. And so this idea of, well, we can't give people platforms or whatever, I think is somewhat of a ridiculous idea, a very ridiculous idea, because it's like, well, you give them that platform so you can demolish their ideas publicly, but and maybe you say, well, we're just going to have on one side, we're never going to have on another. Well, that's bad, because you want to have opposing sides ideally, but maybe today you do the KKK and then tomorrow you do the Black Panthers or whatever, and then the day after that, just for fun, you have them both in the studio at the same time just to see what would happen. So but we have to engage in these ideas. And I remember reading this article, this black guy befriended a KKK guy. So he took the time and trouble and energy and risk of finding some, KKK guy and getting to know him somehow and becoming his friend somehow. And so the guy, well, he left his thing. He left the KKK because the guy talked to him and he got to know him as a person, besides, just seeing him for a skin color, which is, what racism is. It's just, you don't see the person, you see, the pigmentation that they happen to have. It's weird with all the supposed racism going on today, which I don't see any real evidence of people being of actual racism, but I hear a lot of people saying that there's racism everywhere. I'm like, where? Show me an example. Where? You know, I don't. What are you talking about? And usually it's, say with the border disputes, we should increase security at the borders, and people will say there's racism there. What are you talking about? No, it doesn't matter what color they are. There's an argument that, we need a better border so that people that aren't legal can't come in. That's nothing to do with the race. Who cares what it does? Yeah, it's nothing to do with the pigment. If they were coming in from Canada, you'd have the same sort of concern, but they're not. They're pretty somewhat happy in Canada, so they're not going to come here or whatever. And countries that have lots of borders, well, they're concerned with that because they want to keep what's theirs, and more power to them. And there's evidence to show that when you have a flood of influx of a lot of people coming in, that rather than conform to the standards of the society that is there, when in Rome, do as the Romans, that because there's a huge influx of people, they start demanding that their ideas be followed, which is odd. It's like so if Japan suddenly got an influx of a million American schmucks that wanted Starbucks everywhere, well, would they give in to the demand? I don't know, but it appears that some countries that are allowing in a lot of people are giving into the demands. And well, I mean, in a way, democracy, it kind of has to do that. It's like, well, we've got 1 million plus voters that I could get the votes of. I'm running for an office, and I don't, I just care about my own career. I don't care what happens to anyone else. I've got 1 million people coming in from this country. Well, that's 1 million votes I could get, and that would catapult me into the position I want. So yeah, I'll cater and kowtow to them. Why not? So, but we run these risks. And so we have to say, well, let's be a little bit more careful with the borders. And then that's called racist. I don't get that, but, okay. So Gob says, putting Ken Ham on stage with, say, Neil deGrasse Tyson props Ken Ham as if he's on a level playing field. I don't see it that way. Bill Nye debated, what's this, was Ken Ham, right? Now Nye isn't really a scientist. He's an attempt at a science communicator, and he's fallen out of favor in my eyes because of his latest debacle show where he did some anti-scientific stuff. But the less said about that nonsense, the better. But I don't see that having somebody debate somebody else means that they're at their level. That's silly. It's kind of an appeal to authority. Well, this guy has 20 degrees and you run a YouTube channel, so you can't debate him or her. Well, that doesn't, why? Maybe I can just, if I can say something that takes down Neil deGrasse Tyson, and I'm just some schmuck with a YouTube channel, which is, Ken Ham, has a YouTube channel. He has a failed Ark encounter, and all this. He's not, if he wins, then that's bad. But he's not going to win, and I'm not worried about him winning at all. And I don't think that it puts him at the same level or anything like that. I don't think that there are these levels, and if there are levels, that the debate matters more than the levels. That the argument is what matters, not the person. It doesn't matter, you might not like me or my voice or whatever, people have insulted me this, that, and every which way possible on my channel. So, but that doesn't matter. I'm like, yeah, and what's your argument? Do you have an argument? No, you just, somebody a while back insulted me and called into question past activities that I may or may not have done, and used this against me and as reason why they hate me. And they could have just blocked me and unsubscribed and not said any mean things at me, but they decided to say mean things at me, which was good because now I know to block them because I don't want them in my life. Okay, whatever. You don't have an argument. When people go after you rather than your arguments, it means they don't have an argument. They have to attack you. So it's like, yeah, that's okay. And what about my arguments? Maybe my arguments are valid. I might be an asshole, but do I have good arguments? That matters to me more than whether or not you think I'm an asshole. uh, I think that, let's say Kirk, what's his name? Kirk Cameron, debating Dawkins. Now Dawkins wouldn't do that. Dawkins has this thing of, I won't, he won't debate William Lane Craig because, it would look good for Craig. And again, that's a personal choice. I disagree with it because he would demolish Craig. I think he'd have to be prepped on some logical arguments, I think. But Dawkins would have the facts and Craig would have faith. So facts would win. It would look good for Craig, of course, but it would also look worse for him because he would lose. People that believe that he's on the right side, they'd still believe that maybe anyways, but now they're being exposed to somebody who they might not otherwise pay attention to. So a fan of Craig might never listen to anything that Dawkins says ever, period. Doesn't, like he has some stuff from on the Science Channel from way back, demonstrating different science experiments to the kids. This is so somebody might never watch that because it's like, well, it's Dawkins. Dawkins is evil and corrupt and of the devil. But now our angel Craig is going to come and, fight the demon. And I need to, hear him win. And while I'm listening to him win, I'm accidentally hearing what the other side has to say. And that might be penetrating my brain somehow. You don't know. So, I don't think that there's these levels. I think that, well, and again, if there are levels of whatever, I think that's just an appeal to authority that we need to be aware of. Okay. Craig got trounced by King Crocodile. Did Crocodile debate Craig live and I didn't know about this? Or is it just a video response? Because Craig also has a thing of he won't debate somebody unless they have certain degrees or whatever. So, and again, I just go, really? Come on. Who are you? You've got a theology degree. You've got actually he has a degree in philosophy, I should say. He might have a theology degree as well, but it's like, and who cares? Why is that the bar that you're setting? I don't know. Let's see. Okay. We're looking for audio links or whatever. Okay, cool. Yeah, I mean, Craig's pretty easy to take down, because he has the same argument. He doesn't have anything new to offer. But that's apologetics in a nutshell. It's no new arguments. But I think that, and I see this on Facebook and Twitter and on YouTube where people will absolutely refuse to even interact with somebody that they don't agree with. And I saw this many times right around the election and afterwards. And every now and again, some big event comes up, like some mass shooting or whatever, and people will say, "I will unfriend you if you support X, Y, or Z." And I'm like, "Fine, unfriend me then," because I don't want to be friends with somebody that only wants to be friends with me if I happen to agree with everything they say. I'd rather have people, and besides a friend on Facebook doesn't really even mean anything anyways. It's not an actual friend, and so it should really be called something else, but whatever. I'm subscribed to channels that I don't agree with, and I watch their content. That's why I ran across the video that I responded to, and why I'm doing this hangout to talk more about it. Is, here's somebody I would have never seen or heard from if I hadn't been watching a channel I don't agree with. And this is more the political stuff out there that most of you, I don't know, whenever I do these kind of things, I get low view counts of it. So it's apparent that my audience doesn't really care about when I do the political stuff, and they want me to do, the normal deconverted man stuff. So, it's like, well, but it's my channel, I'll do what I want. And that's why I don't have, I'm not like growing insanely. I'm not doing the YouTube formula. I'm not gonna, I could do it, I won't do it, I don't care. It's like, look, I like people, I like certain of you, others of you I don't know well enough if I like or not, but I appreciate all the comments that I get. And some of you I know on a friendly basis, and some of you I've tried to ask out on a date, and you ran away screaming. So I mean, that's my typical motif, though. Snuffy, I asked him on a date, and he was like, well, that's fine, I'm not into that, and he stayed around, so he didn't run away screaming, so I knew he was a good friend. That's my bar, is whether or not you run away screaming when I ask you out, because that's just, I don't know why it's become a meme now. Like the lobster. Yeah, it's weird with the lobster thing, to go off into a little bit of a tangent, because I've had the meme of the lobster for who knows how long now. And Jordan Peterson, who I watch, came out with this book, and in it is like references to lobsters all over it. And I'm like, what's going on? And I was playing Legend of Zelda, and they updated it, and there's new outfits, and one of them is the outfit you get from that you had in the Wind Waker. And I'd totally forgotten what the shirt was, and here he is with a blue shirt with a freaking lobster. I'm like, it's everywhere. I can't get away from the lobster, it's coming after me. So that must mean something. I guess it means a lot is real. I did not run away screaming. Well, see, if you didn't run away screaming when I asked you out, then you're a good person, because you understood that I'm just weird in that way, and that's just an oddness that I have about me, I suppose, which some people don't like, and that's understandable. So what are we talking about now? I don't know. I think I ran out of this free speech rant that I was on. I don't even know if it's really free speech as much as it is trying to convince people not to debate. I suppose that is, in a way, anti-free speech, although you are free to tell people not to talk, which is kind of odd. But and then there are these weird laws that are coming into play, and I don't know, like with the net neutrality stuff. Of course, that's a big deal now. That's huge, and I'm listening to what people that think it's okay are saying, because I want to understand if I'm wrong about net neutrality. Like, maybe it's okay that it's dead. Because it's not coming back anytime soon, I don't think, now that they've killed it, or unless it's not final and I don't understand politics, which is probably true. I don't understand politics. But, it might be okay that it's dead, or it might not be. I don't know. So I want to hear both sides, and I want to hear the arguments, and I want to understand what it is, and what it was, and what it could be, or what it should be, and what are the benefits, what are, and the only way to do that is to listen to the other side of it, which tends to be, more right wing people are okay with net neutrality dying, and more left wing people seem to not be okay with it. So it's weird how that happens. And like many things in my life, it all comes back to balance. There's this, you want to get to the center. You don't want to be too much of anything. You don't want to be too much emotional and too little logic. You don't want to be too much logic and too little emotion. You want to meet somewhere in the middle, and even with skepticism, I've encountered that, where people will get the wrong idea what it means to be a skeptic. And again, that goes back to the versus Ben series that I will eventually get back to. got sick and tired of watching Sonic as I'm trying to analyze what he's saying. So I can't watch it. I have to just listen to it and do my response to it. But he's arguing against philosophical skepticism, which he sees as something distinct from just being skeptical about things, because it's good to be skeptical about things. We all agree on that. You don't want to just believe what people say, because you run into lots of scams and be taken advantage of. Okay. But philosophical skepticism, well, that's a whole different thing, because reasons that he says that are completely incoherent. The thing, there is a reasonable limit to being skeptical, where if you have enough information, you don't need to doubt anymore, because you transition from being uncertain about it to saying, well, I have lots of information. I now know that this is as close to being true as I'm ever going to get. So I might as well call it true, because unless I really want to quantify it, but then that's a meaningless statistic, and say, like, I'm 99.98% sure that other minds except for my own exist. And, I'm 99.99% sure that reality is real. And, I'm 100% sure that I am real, or whatever. And, I don't like to quantify things that way, but if you want to do it, I guess you could. But the more information you have, the more knowledge that you have, the less that you have to doubt certain ideas or whatever. But of course, you want to subject those ideas to regular scrutiny, and kind of like doing your laundry. It's okay if you skip a couple days, but you skip too long, and something starts to stink pretty soon. So you want to go back into your old ideas and make sure that they've been updated, and make sure that they still work, and make sure that they're still good and useful and function. So yeah, but that's part of being a skeptic, is trying to identify the reasonable skepticism from the unreasonable skepticism. So it's unreasonable to doubt that the world is an obloid spheroid. It's unreasonable, because the evidence is overwhelmingly against you. To talk a little bit, and then to tangent a little into the flat earth, I was reading, from the Flat Earth Society, and just hitting my head on my desk and hands and whatever else I could hit my head on, metaphorically speaking, because hitting your head on things doesn't help anything. It could actually hurt you. So I'm not sure why we do that. It's kind of odd, but and one of the things that they say is you can just see that the earth is flat. So if you go outside and you look, and it looks flat, so that's why we should think it's flat. But then in the very next paragraph, they talk about this ice wall that supposedly surrounds the entire earth, that's keeping in our oceans. And that's the thing that we call the Antarctic. And I'm like, I've got a question. Yeah. Has anyone seen that? Because they don't trust photographs, so they have a clearly doctored photograph of this ice wall. And it's like, so on one hand, you're not okay with photographs of space, because you think NASA is lying, plus you think every other organization out there that's been to space is lying for reasons, but it's okay when you guys do it. How does that work? Yeah, the bandwidth and net neutrality and all that. Yeah, I don't know what will happen. I don't know. It might be that everything gets slowed down. I'm in an area where there's one server provider. Unless you go satellite, you're stuck with the one thing that there is. There isn't anything else. The argument I've heard that's against net neutrality is somehow this will encourage other businesses to come into existence, whereas they couldn't have done that before. I don't know how that's, so I guess what you're saying is, so the service I'm with, whoever it is, I think it's Time Warner or whatever. So if they want to decrease my speed on YouTube, and increase my speed to all the Time Warner sites, they hypothetically could now do that, whereas before they weren't allowed to do that. So if I, Joe Schmo, have enough money to invest and create another carrier and say, I'm not going to restrict YouTube, well, everybody's going to come to me as if I charge the same amount, I'll outcompete them, and so the market will sort itself out, hypothetically speaking. But I don't see what incentive that hypothetical company has to arise from absolute void that they don't already have with net neutrality in place. I guess the argument's like, well, they can't, so they would offer the same exact service, the same exact speed as the big one. So, why would you go with the other guy? Because they can't do anything different. They can't offer anything different. So therefore, the removing that would incentivize people to create more business. I that's the argument that I've heard. I don't know. I don't know what to make of it. Reb tending, yeah, free market, yeah. I mean, yeah. So internet service providers, I mean, you've got the big boys, if you will, and then and you don't hear about the small fries. I don't, I have no idea who, but if you're out in the boondocks or the Goonies or whatever, and you have one selection. Again, the argument is that it will encourage a company to come into existence, or an existing company to come in, like say Sprint says, hey, if we start servicing this rural area, which would cost them a lot of money to do, but if we started doing that and we offer no restriction on our speeds, then people will flock to us, and we could maybe even charge more for doing so. But is that really a good argument against it? Just leave it alone. It's been fine. Well, let the internet do what it does. But there's a lot of political things that I don't understand. Like, there's these laws apparently in I want to say Britain. They have these anti-bullying laws now, or they've had them for a while, and I just became aware of it. So like somebody actually went to jail because they bullied somebody online. I'm like, what? You can disconnect your computer, right? I mean, what's going on? What's happening? That so you can go to jail for being a troll online. That's not good. I mean, there's certain activities that you could do online that I would say are reasons to go to jail, but saying things that might hurt somebody's feelings, no, because I mean, well, there goes everything. Oh, that guy hurt my feelings. Well, time to send him to jail, I guess, or fine him or whatever. It's just whatever. Cyber stalking, yeah. And again, I don't. I remember. Now, I don't like Dr. Phil. Don't like him. Let me say that. Preference what I'm about to say with that, because it's just I don't like him. Just no reason. Just don't. But he did a show with these guys. Oh goodness, what was their kitchen's name? Oh man, I can't remember. But they were actually on a Kitchen Nightmares or whatever. And Ramsey went to try to help these guys, and they were like, oh, we were online and people were saying all these bad things about us, and they ruined our rep, and that's why our restaurant's failing. He's like, no, your food sucks. That's why your restaurant's failing. And they were like in La La Land, believing that their food was awesome, which like everybody on the show always believes their food is awesome, even when it's not, which is always weird. It's like he, goes in there and looks like, here's all this gunk in your kitchen. You haven't cleaned it out in, forever. what are you guys doing? And of course, they're always like shocked and they didn't know what the hell is going on in their own business. It's like, what are you doing running a restaurant when you're doing that? I don't know. But at any rate, these people were claiming that they'd been harassed online, and they had responded back, and so now they got into a flame war, kind of back and forth. And Ramsey couldn't save their thing. He actually, it was one of the few times he walked away from it and said, I quit. I can't do it. I can't help these people. He said, they're done. They're dead. They're gonna die. I can't help them. And so they went on the Phil show. Look, just disconnect. Just turn off your thing. Don't be on there. Don't respond. And so it's weird because it's like, yeah, just block the trolls, ignore them. Or maybe here's an idea: if they're saying that your food sucks, maybe your food sucks. Your food does suck. So what they were saying was actually true, and you weren't letting it penetrate through your brains because there's just something wrong with these people, I guess. But there's that weird kind of brush up against where I started out this talk saying that we shouldn't tell people not to debate, or that there's no idea that we shouldn't be able to debate or talk about or whatever, because we have a free marketplace of ideas. We need to maintain that. It's important to do so, because you get to point out who's wrong and all that, and apply scrutiny and critical analysis to it. And on the flip side of that, you have a social sphere, which is very different, where if somebody's attacking you, you don't have to stand for that. You block them, you get rid of them, you ignore them. And if they get through that, well, then it might be that you might need some help at that point, and that's not unreasonable. Way back in the day when I first started YouTube, I was actually stalked by like a 11-year-old kid who was just making account after account that was named my channel name, but then is stupid or is an idiot or is whatever at the end. And I was just like blocking every single channel he made and warning my friends about this person. And like, well, what do I do? Like, YouTube didn't have anything in place at the time to really stop it. And I like even called the sheriff's department. I'm like, do you guys have like a cyber thing? Like, what do I do? Like, it's weird. They didn't know what to do. So, I mean, is that something that where we want something created so that we can deal with people like that? Or is it better that, I mean, eventually he did go away. He gave up because I blocked him so many times, and I kept reporting him. And eventually, I guess there was reports hit and they eventually banned his IP or whatever. I'd rather it be settled that way, but there's, it's not a blanket thing that you can just throw out there and say, well, here's the cure all for it. It's kind of a case by case basis, I suppose. But that's that, and maybe we've come too much to depend on our social interactions online. And there's something to be said about, disconnecting for a few days. Especially if it becomes unhealthy. There was a person who had been accused of doing something they didn't do, and they continually attacked the people that made this false accusation. And I said, this isn't healthy for you. You're right, and you'll win in court. Let it be there. Let it live there. Stop going after them, because it's just bringing up this anger for you over and over again. And it's not being angry at someone else is like taking arsenic and hoping that they die. I've heard that saying at some point, so it does you no good. So there's a social sphere that's different from the skeptical sphere, if you will, of public domain and ideas where, X idea should be analyzed. Oh, somebody thinks I'm an asshole. Should I analyze that idea? Well, I don't know. I mean, if you can withstand that scrutiny, maybe you could do that. I don't know, but that's actually a form of dialogue called erratic dialogue. And erratic dialogue, the whole function of it is to try to get to the deeper basis of the conflict. But the methodology is completely flawed because the method is to hurl out verbal hits on your opponent to try to knock them down. So this is what we would normally call an argument. So if I said to Snuffy, "Hey, you're a poopy head," and he said, "Well, yeah, your hair sucks, and why don't you comb it before you film your videos, you Nimrod?" And we just start arguing. Well, why? Why did I call him a poopy head in the first place? Well, maybe because he posted this thing that upset me 2 weeks ago. And instead of talking to him about it, I put it in the back of my head and I let it fester. He didn't, by the way. I'm just using him as an example. I love Snuffy. If nothing wrong with him, he's awesome and cool and everything else. He's totally going to date me after this video. But that the goal, we're never going to get there. We're probably never going to get there because whatever the deeper basis of that conflict is, insulting each other back and forth, we're not going to get to that. So that's why it's called erratic or erratic dialogue, is because it's not logical. Although it is a type of debate. All dialogues can be seen as debate if you want to. This what I'm doing right now between myself and all of you that are listening in the here and now and later on when this is recorded for posterity on YouTube, this is an information exchange dialogue. I'm presenting information and you're presenting information back, and I'm interacting with that information. And some of it is fact, some of it is feeling, some of it is opinion, some of it is hyperbolic, some of it is whatever you want to call it. But it is a debate in essence, because we're thinking about what we're saying and we're thinking about what we're typing, and we're interacting and trying to engage each other in some way. So there's a debate there. Questions contain premises. That's something very important to learn about in logic. Is when you ask a question, you're assuming a lot already by asking a question. And you say, is it cold outside? Well, that assumes that there's an outside. That assumes that cold exists. It assumes that I can go out and find out whether it's cold outside, or that I have that knowledge, or that I'm capable of finding out that information. So there's a lot prepackaged in every question that contains premises, and we don't usually think about it that way, because we just say things and let it go into the ether and deal with it later. I remember this another good quote, some reality show, I think it was like a Super Nanny or whatever, and the gal said to the kids that she squeezed out a tube of toothpaste onto a spoon, and she said, "Put it back in." Of course it can't put they're struggling trying to get the toothpaste back in. They can't do it, or they get a little bit in, but they can't get it all in. She said, that's what words are like. Words are like toothpaste. It's easy to get out, but it's impossible to get back in. I thought that was really brilliant. When you say things, it's out there, and you can't bring it back in. Although we kind of can online. We can delete our posts or our videos or whatever. I try to leave up ones that I do that are wrong, so that I can correct it and say, no, I was wrong on that. See, yeah, that video. No, I was wrong about that. I think that's important, but not everybody, wants to do that or can do that or whatever. But I do think that people do need to kind of toughen up, in the sense that if you're being attacked and you're feeling bad about that, you get away from that. And if it's online, you have blocks and whatever, and use that. And it doesn't need to go any further than that. Hopefully it won't have to. If they kept, coming after you or whatever, then I guess it would. But I always fear putting laws into place, because once you give the government power, you never get it back. Once you give the agency power, that's it. They have it. They never give it back. So you got to be really careful about that stuff, and really think about that, because it's one thing on paper to say, well, this looks good on paper. This looks like it will protect people, but you don't know. You have no idea, what it will look like. And in Canada, where they have this protection of speech, where you have to, call somebody by their preferred pronoun or whatever the bleep that means. And I'm like, do you guys really think that this is never going to be abused? So I can form a verbal contract in Canada, legally speaking. And if you don't do it, then there's going to be some sort of consequence for you not doing it. Hypothetically speaking, it hasn't gone to court yet, but that doesn't mean it couldn't go to court. So my preferred pronoun is I hereby agree to the contract that is verbal, that I'm now, I could, form some string of words that made a verbal contract that is my preferred pronoun. And so you have to call me that. And by calling me that, you've now agreed to my contract. Or heck, I could do something like, my preferred pronoun is my Lord and Savior God, who I shall obey. And if not, you may kill me. Well, that's what you have to call me now by law. Well, that's awkward, because if you believe in a different God, you don't want to call me that. If you don't believe in God, you don't want to call me that. And so you don't want to call me that. But if you don't, well, now what? And I think that if they really believe that nobody's going to take advantage of that system, well, they got another thing coming. It's only a matter of time. That's not a pronoun. Sure it is. It's my pronoun. How do you know it's not my pronoun? I mean, if him, her, it, they, them, zer, z, them, Jimmy, if all these can be pronouns, then my Lord and God Savior, whom I shall obey and worship, or else you will kill me, can be a pronoun. Can't say it's not, because there's no rules about it. There's no structure to it. So, that's my identity. How dare you question my identity? Now we go to court over it. Well, it's actually a human tribunal, a human rights tribunal that we go to. No, no. Yeah, I'm not using anything but him and her either. I'm sticking the stand with Jordan. I won't use anything but him and her. That's it. But you can say that my preferred pronoun is anything, and nobody can challenge it. How would they? How could they? And he said, well, there's rules. Where are the rules written? Are they in law? Are the rules of what a pronoun is and isn't in law, or not? If it's not in the law, then there isn't any rules. And if everything is a social construct, which is what these people in Canada are saying, apparently, then anything goes. And my preferred gender is my Lord and God Savior, who I shall obey, and if not, I will get to kill you. And that's what you have to call me now if you believe in that stuff. Unless you only believe in it when it's convenient to believe in it, or you want to make special rules for it that don't really exist, or whatever the argument is. But that argument is something that we need to argue. And they're saying we can't even talk about it. They're saying even, that's what Lindsay Shepherd was all about, was here's this, girl that shows a clip from a public broadcast that happens to involve Jordan Peterson in our class. And she's taken in to, be questioned by the authorities of her school. How dare you legitimize his side of things? And they're calling him all these names that don't apply to him. And it's like, well, she wrong-thinked. That's what she did. She wrong-thinked. So it's Orwellian. It's very Orwellian. It's scary stuff. I don't think that the university as we know it will be able to keep going as it is, with these sort of ludicrous ideas in place. And the idea that somebody's feelings will be hurt if I don't call them by a certain thing. Oh, well, and since when do we care about your feelings more than, why? I don't care. And he said, well, you can call me a name, and we're just not going to be friends. And, oh, well, move on. Go about your day. That's the end of that. That's where it should end. You don't want to call me, whatever the thing is, then don't call me that, and that's that. Why is it so important to you? Anyways. But yeah, I mean, we've got to be able to debate this stuff because, if we say that's removed from the table, then that leaves violence. That's the only answer left. If I can't reason with you, if you can't reason with me, if we can't debate and discuss and explore and say, well, what does this mean? Is there a rule to it? Can you prove that there's a rule? You said there's a rule, so show me that. Well, I can't find it. Well, then I'm skeptical, and that's the end of that until you find that there's a rule. So, I was on Facebook debating stuff, and I said to the guy, the truth matters more than feelings, more than anything. The truth is all that matters. You will change my mind if you have the truth. If you have the facts, that will do it. Because he started bringing up ethics. He's like, well, what about, these people are going to get hurt if this happens or whatever. I'm like, and? If they might. I don't know. So what? What's the truth? If it's true, if X is true, then it's true. And it's true regardless of how people respond to it. It's kind of like saying, well, what if it was true that every time we taught evolution that kids began to climb up trees and act like monkeys? Would that negate our burden of telling the truth? No. No, the consequence, we'd have to figure out a way around through the consequence, to negate it or eliminate it or some way to deal with it or get around it or whatever. But to simply say, well, we're not going to teach the truth anymore because of the consequence. Well, you've now committed a logical fallacy. So now what? Where does that lead you? Nowhere good that I can tell. I mean, I have yet to see, now it's possible, that there's a argument that is constructed with fallacies and that its conclusion, I should say it the other way around, sorry. An argument that is valid and sound, or that is logically coherent, and the conclusion actually turns out to not be true. Okay. Because the reverse is usually the case, where you have a bad argument, the conclusion might be true independent of the argument. So either it's raining or it's not raining. It's not raining, therefore my light's on. Now, that's a horrible argument. There's many logical fallacies, bonus points if you point them out. But it might be true that the light's on. But I have to be skeptical that the light's on because the argument sucked so badly. But it might the reverse, so that we call that, by the way, the fallacy, to say that the light is off or on, and to say that it can't possibly be true that the light's on because he had a bad argument. That's the fallacy. Okay, let me restate that. Make sure I have it right in my head. If you say you had a sucky argument, therefore the conclusion is false, that's the fallacy. Okay. The reverse of that could be true, that you might have a unflawed argument and the conclusion, although logic says that's the conclusion we should trust, it could be somehow false. I've never seen it happen, but that doesn't mean it couldn't happen. People are very smart with how they use words. There's no fallacy to cover it, by the way. So what I always say when you have an argument and you have a logical argument is, if you have a valid and sound argument and you have no fallacies in the argument, the conclusion is one that you investigate further. So the whole function of informal logic, from my perspective, is to decide whether or not it's worth your time to look into the matter. So I have to be skeptical of that conclusion. I could look into it. I don't have to now, because it was your burden to make me, think it was worth my time to look into it. But you didn't fulfill your burden. So maybe the light's on, maybe it's off. I don't know. Your argument sucked. Go back and fix it and come back when it's fixed, and we'll try this again. And maybe I want to see if the light's on independently of that, but I don't need to because it didn't give me a decent argument. But it might be, maybe, that you give me a decent argument and it turns out the light wasn't on. What do we do then? I don't know. We've never come to that point, but that's why we say arguments aren't proof, is because it is hypothetically possible that such an argument could be constructed, even though it's not been done. As far as I know, doesn't mean that it's impossible. But the whole purpose of the logical argument is to decide whether or not the conclusion is investigatable or skeptical. So he's either I look into it because you got a good argument, or I go, whatever. I'm skeptical about it. Moving on. Okay. Okay. We're debating about the pronoun silliness and chat, I suppose. I mean, there's the social construct of the social interaction that we have with people. I'm deconverted man, okay. But you can also call me Dan Green, but that's not my real name, but you can call me that. You could also call me anything you want. What's it going to matter to me? You can call me poopy head, whatever, You call me Snuffy, that might be confusing, but you could do that. Now, if you do that, there are social consequences of me. I might not interact with you because of that, because you weren't kind to me, so I don't have any reason to be kind back. But it doesn't change. It doesn't change anything. So the fact of the matter is, my name is not Dan Green. I'm not going to tell you guys and gals and whatever, robots or whatever, what my real name is, because, it's my business and I don't want to. But you calling me something else, something I don't like or whatever, it doesn't, it just means that, okay, I guess, we may or may not associate because you damaged the social contract. And we assume innocence until guilt is proven when we deal with people on a social level. So when I'm talking to somebody, and again, I'm just going to use Snuffy as my example because he's a good guy and I know that he's okay with me doing that, or I assume he is. I mean, we've interacted enough to where I think that that's true, and I'm basing a lot of that on past interactions. See, so I'm already making assumptions about what I know about him and things like this. But if he says, I ate dinner last night, well, I don't have any reason to doubt him. It's a benign claim, Now, if he tells me he ate dinner with the president of the United States last night, well, the claim is more extraordinary. And even though I like him and I don't really have reason to not believe him, I still require the same burden of proof as I do for everyone else. And he knows that, and he knows that he's going to have to provide that. And if he doesn't, then I'm going to be skeptical. And he should expect that and know that and not take offense at that. And so, when somebody says, well, I'm really a girl, but they look like and sound like a guy, I might say, well, I don't know that that's true, but more power to you. Okay. Maybe I believe them, maybe I don't. Do I call them that? Depends. Do I feel like calling them that? Maybe I do, maybe I don't. If I don't, that might break the social contract that I might want to make with them. That I say, okay, well, I'll call you a girl for now because you said you were a girl. I'm skeptical about it. Maybe you'll prove it to me at some point, but okay, fine. I'm giving you the benefit of the doubt because maybe you just believe it's a belief statement, like you believe in God. You believe you're a girl. Okay, I'm not, all right, that's what you believe. I don't have to believe it though, unless you want to make it a statement of fact. I am a girl. Well, then you're going to have to prove that somehow. If you don't want to prove it, fine. I get to be skeptical about it. And we're back to, that. But there's this, that social interaction is on a person-to-person basis. And there is something about trying to impose the force of law on that I see as very dangerous and very risky. because somebody will find a way, not just because of the consequences or potential consequences, but it does radically alter society in a way that I've never. Well, I don't know if society's ever been altered that way before. So I don't have anything to compare it against. So I don't know if it's failed in the past. So it's uncharted territory. And that could be very, very risky. Of course, that's not a very well fleshed out argument. And so you could easily just demolish that if you wanted to. But there again, we have to be able to argue it. If we can't, then what? Then it's just, well, I feel like this is true. You know, I was talking to somebody on Google Plus, and saying that, you know, they had this meme up or whatever, and of course I was dismantling the bleep out of it because I do that every now and again. And they're like, "Oh, it's just Google Plus. Who cares? You're trying to make it like it's Harvard level." And I'm like, "No, I have the same requirement here that I do everywhere else. It's just, why lower the bar of discussion at all, ever? Oh, it's just Twitter, it's just YouTube, it's just Google Plus. Who cares? You know, and it's, you know, why take it so seriously? Why not take it seriously?" And so if we're going to, and then of course, if you made an argument, let's say I made a successful argument that we should lower the bar. Well, then that goes into an infinite regress, doesn't it? It's like, well, we should lower the bar. I agree. That was a good argument. Well, we should keep lowering the bar. Okay. Well, now what? And then you've got truism is true. Everything I say is true. Even if I say truism is false, that's true too. Because we have no bar at all. We removed it. We got rid of it. We kept lowering it until it didn't exist anymore. So that's not good either. You know, so yeah, that, you know, you run into absurdity when you do that. Okay. I don't know. We're having two different conversations. One in the chat room that I'm trying to read, and one that I'm having with you guys and gals in general. But yeah, we could get to the point where, you know, it's not a manhole cover, it's a people hole cover. I mean, come on, really? Why? Does it really matter? It's not mankind, it's humanity. Really? Why? And the next thing, and I'm waiting for this to develop, is we can't say woman because it contains man in it. So we have to come up with a new word. You know, and girl's too demeaning, so we can't use girl. So we have to come up with a completely new word to describe the female. Can't say female either because it has male in it. You know, we want it. You know, when I want to separate ourselves so far, it's like, look, we're already separate. Our genders are different. Okay, we've got different things going on down there. You know, I don't know what's going on once a month. You deal with that. I've got my own problems over here. If I land on a bike the wrong way, I'm out of commission. You know, I don't understand why guys' bikes have the straight line and girls have the curve. That should be the opposite way. Actually, it's based on that girls' bikes were made that way due to skirts being a thing, that you wouldn't have to hike up your skirt. So that became the standard for bikes. The girl bikes have the slanted bar because girls used to wear skirts, when now they, I guess, don't, unless they come into fashion again. That might be a thing. But yeah, I mean, the guy would need the slanted bar, not the girl. So go figure. But you know, if we did things that made sense, we probably wouldn't play football or whatever. You know, it's like we know that people get brain injury. We know that. It's absolute fact. People will get brain injury from playing this game. We know that no improvement on the football helmet will really end that. It will only maybe lessen it. We know that there was some major, you know, funny business with the NFL not wanting to admit this because they'd have a lot of money to pay out if they did. So everyone pretends that it's fine and just, you know, keeps playing the game because we don't, you know, because people like it. It doesn't matter if people get hurt. And maybe there should be a thing that says, look, you know, here's a waiver, sign it before you know, play this, knowing that you're going to hurt yourself, or you could hurt yourself. Then they're off the hook. But then that would mean admitting that they know that it can cause brain injury and they don't want to do that. So they don't want to give them the waiver that would get them off the hook later. So that doesn't make any sense, but we do it. You know, people drive motorcycles. That's not safe, but we do it. You can mitigate the safety to some degree, wear protective clothing and whatnot. And I mean, I've seen people, in t-shirts with no helmets zooming along their bike, and I'm like, okay, you're screwed if anyone hits you. And meanwhile, they've invented like a personal body bag that like it will inflate like an airbag, but it's this like suit that you can wear, and it will just go puff up like you're that Michelin tire guy. He's all puffy, or whatever. Well, nobody's gonna wear that. It's a great invention, but I guess part of being a biker is like I'm so strong and badass that I don't need that sort of protection. If it was me, if I was riding a motorcycle for whatever bizarre, I'd be wearing like 10 of those things. I'm like, and I'm on a road with nobody else, 'cause I want to avoid the risk, but all right. So what else? Are we still talking about the gender thing? Dang it. I don't care. Would you like if you were he or she? It's funny. I actually was. Somebody said her or miss to me when I was younger because I had hair down below my shoulders at that point. I've let it grow pretty long. It's time for a cut. It's getting close to summertime, so it's gonna get cut. But I was like, whatever. It didn't bother me. But that's one dot. I'm one dot on a chart of a hypothetical chart that we could construct that asks people, do you mind if people misidentify you as he rather than she? And even if the results were like across the board that people, majorityly speaking, didn't like when they were misidentified, again, who cares? It's your feelings. Get over it. Toughen up. It's a tough world out there, man. People are going to say things to you deliberately to upset you. What are you going to do then? Forget about them doing it accidentally. What if they deliberately go out of their way to upset you or offend you because they want to hurt you? Well, then what are you going to do? Are you going to deal with it and move on? Or are you going to call in somebody to, step in and be your mom and dad? I think it's better to take your own, responsibility for yourself and for your own well-being. I have lots of mental issues that are mine to deal with. Nobody else's. I've had public meltdowns on Hangouts, and I always regret it. And I say I'm sorry about that, guys. And I had that meltdown, and it's my fault. And I really should have left long before I had that meltdown. And I feel like it's a disservice to being a skeptic somehow. I failed skepticism, as if skepticism was a thing to fail. But no, it's just my brain had a meltdown, and I didn't take personal responsibility to get myself out of this situation when I should have. And that's not their fault. That's my fault. And I shouldn't require them to tiptoe on eggshells around me. If I'm so bad off that I get upset when somebody says the word, cheese whiz, I need to get mental help for that. I don't need to expect that people online not say that word because it's going to trigger me. Too bad. Grow up. People have real PTSD, and I know what that's like. I know what it's like. I've seen it. I've been around it, and I've experienced it myself. Not that that should matter, but yeah, it's not fun. It's no fun. But you don't get treated by that by making people stop talking about the thing that upsets you. That's the opposite way of treating PTSD for real. The real thing is you actually expose the person to the thing that upsets them, so you take, if the person's afraid of an elevator, you take them and you see the elevator from maybe it's a mile away, maybe it's just a picture of an elevator. Then you get closer to the elevator, and then you get closer, and then you're looking down the shaft and then the machinery of the elevator, and then you watch somebody build an elevator, and then you ride on the damn thing. That's how you do it. And you do that maybe with help, or maybe you do it on your own, but you do it because that takes personal responsibility for yourself, and you toughen up and you get tough so that you don't have to keep being browbeaten by yourself and your own brain and the world. And so it's the worst thing that you could do is to coddle somebody and not uh, allow them to get hurt now and then. The way to stand up to a bully is to stand up to him or her. And maybe they beat you up. Maybe you beat them up. Maybe a little bit of both. But you stood your ground. And now they know that you're somebody that won't back down. That's a whole different matter. So I just, I think that the feeling argument is irrelevant. I don't, feelings, what matters is fact. If you look like a girl and I call you a girl and you weren't, and you got upset, oh well, sorry. Maybe I'll say sorry, maybe I won't. Move on. There was I could relate tons of stories of myself. I was on a bus and I stank. I just reeked because I just, hadn't done laundry the last day for whatever reason. I was lazy. I ran to the bus stop. I was just stinky. And these people were just complaining about the stench. And they knew it was me, and I knew that it was me, and I didn't say anything about it. I didn't, tell them to shut up. But it bothered me because I knew that it was me. But I just let them say what they needed to say, and when it was my stop, I got off. And that was it. I could have said something. Wouldn't have been worthwhile, maybe. I don't know. But sometimes you just go, yeah, I do stink. That's the truth. I got to do something about that. Maybe I could have said that. I don't know. But, you toughen up. Let's look back at the chat. Let's see. Okay. I don't know what I missed in chat. Anything interesting? I don't know. That, by the way, that wasn't meant to go off on anybody or anything like that. And, so if it came off that way, I'm not attacking you. I'm attacking your ideas. I'll talk about God a little bit because that's what I'm supposed to be doing on this channel. No, wait. I'll talk about God, but first I will talk about what happened with when I shared. As many of you know, our friend and ally in insanity fighting, John, the quiet atheist, is the universe is taking a colossal dump on him, and I've given him some stuff in the past. I can't help him out any more than I have, other than to say, hey, he needs help. I shared that he needed help on the great debate community, and boy, oh boy, the assholes came out of the woodwork, and they were like, "Oh, get a job," and I'm like, "Dude, you don't even know what you're talking about, man. You don't know the situation, you don't know what anything, and you're just, and then well, this and that or whatever." And finally, I had to just delete the whole thing. I was like, "Well, that's not the place to ask for help, I guess." And it's funny because I've never seen these people post before, and I don't think I'll ever see them post again. And so sometimes, the assholes come out of the woodwork, when, and you gotta, what do you do about that? You just do what you got to do and move on. But a lot of us have helped him, and I see that as a huge positive. That the fact is, he was living with Christian people who kicked him out. Well, that's really Christian, right? And so we've got the atheist group of people that some might want to call community, but I don't like that term, but whatever, that have helped him out more than the Christians would. And you would think, the Christians would be like, "Oh, you're an atheist, we don't care. Here's more love. Here's more stuff to show you how good of a, if you judge." Okay, so now I'm sort of talking about God. If you judge Christians by the method that it gives in the Bible, I don't know if you would find a single Christian out there, because it tells you what to look for. By their fruits you will know them. So doing, helping others in need, and and all this other stuff, these beatitudes, humble and kind and generous, yada yada, there's this whole list in there. Oh man, where's that Christian? I don't know. It's so, you find out how quickly Christians actually believe their own Bible when you need help, because I've been there myself, where I'm like, I announced in church, I need help. I needed, money, or whatever, or I needed somewhere to stay, or whatever the bleep it was at the time. I don't know. And 0 is the amount of people that came to try to help me. And that, was a church full of, 30, 40 people, whatever. And I knew these people had houses and cars and stuff. It's not like, I could have slept on somebody's couch or something. But that's, it's on paper. It says to do that. Sure. But I don't want to do that. So I'm not going to do that. So you don't really believe in it. You just believe in the things about it that you like. And that's what religion is pick and choose. I like this, don't like that. So I believe that that's true. I don't believe that. I ignore that. And the same thing goes with God. God is anything and everything that you want it to be, and then some. God is literally the answer for everything and nothing at the same time, because anyone can say anything about God, and God, if it exists, doesn't seem to stop us. God doesn't seem to mind when we take its name in vain, whatever that means. So whatever God is, it doesn't seem to care what we say about it or do about it or whatever. So if it does exist, it seems rather useless. It's kind of just there, but it doesn't do anything. It's like, it'd be interesting to find out that was the case. I'd be like, oh, that's interesting. Didn't know that. Okay. And we go about our lives. Nothing would really change. A God that actually, could do something, that's different. That's a whole different story. You've got basically a genie at that point. You've got the genie that can grant the wishes. There's a reason why we're unsatisfied with Deus Ex Machina, where you have in a movie or a show the situation where the writers paint themselves into a corner, and all of a sudden, boom, it was all a dream. So that solves it. They don't. So you're dissatisfied with it. You don't like that because it's cheap. And so God would be the ultimate cheat code, the ultimate in different games like I play, like Minecraft or whatever, where you can constrain yourself to not have infinite resources. You can make it so that it's harder, or you can give yourself infinite resources. You have the two choices. And I get this like weird temptation where I'm like, okay, I got my character killed and everything I had is gone, and that means getting it all back again. Or I could just cheat and give myself everything I want. And then I go, no. If I do that, then it doesn't count anymore. And so if there was this like God that could, do anything, it would be like, it wouldn't count, would it? It would just be like, here, you want this? There you go. You have it. And so everything would kind of lose value, right? You don't need perpetual motion could be true if a God existed. You wouldn't have to eat anymore. Well, now you don't have to go to the bathroom. Well, that's kind of cool. But you wouldn't have to do anything. anymore. You could just instantly know a new language. And maybe once or twice that would be kind of cool. But if you could do it for everything, you have a cheat code for everything, that would, I don't know what that, that would, life would lose all value and meaning. I think that, I mean, just imagine it, that you could literally have anything you wanted just by saying the right thing to God, or it doesn't even, you don't even have to call it God. If I say Alakazam Abracadabra, as I spin around clockwise, I will get anything I want. And be like, well, that's great. I could cure cancer. Boom, it's done. Well, that's great. But then the second time, it's pretty, I cure the next thing. I cure all the things. But at some point during that process, and I don't know when it would happen, there'd be a loss of the effort that was that it's like I didn't do anything. It's just been given to me. It's just, and some things I think we would be fine with, like cures of diseases. I think we could live with that. But other things, I think we'd be so dissatisfied. But then again, I guess we could ask to be satisfied with the new order. Unless you're God, then it's all shit and giggles. I don't know why it keeps marking things as spam. Hey, Forbidden Thinker. Okay, so what else? Complained about not telling people to not debate or discuss ideas, and ended with, how if there was a God that gave you everything, or that would devalue life, which then becomes a theistic argument that's why God doesn't do anything. Oops. All right. Thanks, everybody. I think I'm out of stuff. So hope you enjoyed this. You left comments in the chat room. So that will be a thing. But if you want to leave a comment on the video. And I had a talk with a gal on my videos, Kristen. And I know that, not too many of you are interested in the more political things, but she is a real sharp cookie and has a lot of interesting things to say. I don't know where the expression sharp cookie came from. So it's an hour plus long. You don't have to listen to all of it, but check it out. Because I didn't get a lot of views on that. So I'm trying to make you do that. All right. That's it. That's all I've got. Snuffy, thanks to Brian. Acorn Thinker. I'm never going to pronounce this name. Jermalia. I think that's it. Stephen Bachman. Who else was in here? Did I miss anybody? Rational Martian. I'm trying to say everybody's name so they feel like they're included. I think I skipped somebody's name. Gob Berrit. There, I said everybody's name that's in here that matters. If I didn't say your name, well, you don't matter. That's not going to get anybody upset. As always, even though this doesn't fit, unless and until we have a logically coherent argument, something lobsters exist. All right, now how do I turn this off? No, that's not the button. Whee! Oh no! No, that's not the button. That's the button. This is the death button. All 9 viewers, good night. Good stuff. I don't have a way to end this.